After being reborn, I treated my husband, the captain of the Special Ops unit, as a stranger. When Ethan came home for vacation, I left on a business trip that very night. When his mother urged us to have children, she handed me a divorce agreement. In my previous life, it took me 50 years to realize that Ethan had only married me to appease his family. The woman he truly loved, his childhood sweetheart, was the one he carried in his heart forever. His untouchable, white moonlight. It wasn't until his funeral that I saw his will with my own eyes. He had requested that all his assets be given to that childhood sweetheart, and even asked to be buried beside her. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the very day he brought that woman to meet his parents. This time, I tore up the marriage contract in front of everyone. "If someone wants to be your substitute, let her," I said coldly. Later, he knelt in the pouring rain, begging me to come back. I looked at the captain of the Special Ops team standing beside me and said, "My husband happens to be your commanding officer." Suddenly, my phone vibrated violently in my palm. On the screen were more than a dozen unread messages from my best friend, all sent in panic. At the very top was a trending post on social media, followed by a bright red police badge number. Special Ops Captain Ethan Carter caught holding hands with his childhood sweetheart Summer Hayes outside a Sanya resort. The attached photo was painfully clear. Under the blazing Hainan sun, Ethan stood tall and straight in casual clothes. His profile turned slightly as he listened to Summer, dressed in a white sundress, smiling like a flower, talk beside him. The hand that had always been steady and strong on a gun was now tightly holding hers, naturally and intimately. My mind went blank, followed by a crushing wave of pain. Memories shattered like shards of ice, stabbing through my heart with all the cold despair of my past life. That photo. In my previous life, it was this exact day when I saw that exact picture. And I believed him when he said it was just a coincidence. I believed his sly little lie. I believed his parents when they said Summer was just like a younger sister to him. So I married him anyway, full of hope, and became Mrs. Carter, his wife in name and law. And then came decades of slow, suffocating indifference, like a frog boiled alive in warm water. Mission after mission, he was always too busy. I would prepare a full dinner, waiting until the dishes went cold, only for him to walk in and say flatly, "I already ate at the base." On nights when I finally gathered the courage to reach for him, he would stiffen, push me away and say, "I'm tired, next time." But there was never a next time. I spent countless nights alone in our empty home, counting the rare days he was due to return, waiting from youth until my hair turned white. Like a devout believer, I worshipped what I thought was love. In return, I got nothing but polite distance that lasted a lifetime. Until his final mission, he never came back. I fainted from grief at his memorial, but still forced myself to handle the funeral arrangements. The night before the funeral, the mother-in-law I had served half my life, the one who had always spoken to me gently, handed me a cold copy of his will and said without expression, Ethan's final wish was to be buried with Summer. All his pension, savings, and property go to her. In that instant, my world collapsed completely. Desperate, I rummaged through his belongings like a madwoman. Deep inside his locked bookcase, I found several leather-bound journals. From his youthful handwriting to his mature penmanship, page after page, word after word, every entry was about her. Summer cried today because I couldn't be there for her birthday. I'll make it up to her next time. Went to the park we used to visit as kids. She's still as adorable as ever. Summer said she wants to see the ocean in Sanya. I'll take her there when I'm on leave. Even on our wedding anniversary, he had written just one line. "Went home with Lena. Thinking of Summer." A thunderclap exploded in my mind. So he wasn't born cold-hearted. He had simply given all his warmth, tenderness, and love to another woman. All my 50 years of devotion, 50 years of waiting, had been nothing but a cruel joke. I was nothing more than the dutiful wife he used to appease his family. The pitiful obstacle in the touching love story between Ethan and Summer. I had lived like a widow my entire life, managing the house alone, serving his parents for decades. In the end, I didn't even have the right to be buried beside him, nor did I receive a single cent of his estate. Did I hate him? The hatred made my whole body tremble. Did it hurt? My heart had already been crushed into ashes long ago. When I opened my eyes again, I was 24 years old. It was the exact moment that same photo, one that had pierced through 2 lifetimes, had just gone viral online. My phone was still vibrating, and on the screen flashed the name Ethan Carter. He had probably just finished his mission and was calling to calm me down after seeing the uproar. In my previous life, I had answered the call in tears, listening to his flimsy excuses, even feeling sorry for how hard he worked on his missions. This time, I ended the call and blocked his number, decisively, without a trace of hesitation. Barefoot, I stepped onto the cold floor and walked to my desk. My fingers were icy but steady as I began typing on my laptop. The title at the top of the document read, "Termination of Engagement Agreement." The content was simple, the tone calm and composed. I, Lena Carter, and Mr. Ethan Carter, after an engagement arranged by our elders, have mutually agreed to dissolve the engagement due to a weak emotional foundation and incompatible values. From this day forward, we part peacefully and wish each other happiness. At the bottom, I signed my name, printed the document, stamped my fingerprint, and sealed it in an envelope. Then I booked an express courier. Recipient, Captain Ethan Carter, Special Operations Unit. When everything was done, I stood by the window, watching the delivery man downstairs carry away the envelope that would change the course of my life. I let out a long, heavy breath. All the resentment, humiliation, and grief I had carried for 50 years seemed to drift away with that single exhale. Ethan Carter, this is your love, your precious summer, your heart-wrenching romance. None of it has anything to do with me anymore. In the Special Ops Command Office, Captain Ethan Carter had just returned from a week-long wilderness mission. Exhausted and covered in dust, he hadn't even taken a sip of water when his aide walked in with an urgent envelope, looking uneasy. "Captain, you have an express delivery." Ethan rubbed his temples and took the envelope. The texture of the plain brown paper felt ordinary, but the sender's name, Lena Carter, was printed clearly in the corner. His cold, sharp eyes softened slightly. Lena. She probably sent him some local specialties again, or maybe one of her usual letters reminding him to take care of his health. She was always like that, thoughtful and gentle. He casually tore open the seal and pulled out the document inside. The bold black title at the top hit him like a dagger made of ice. Termination of Engagement Agreement. Ethan froze. The exhaustion vanished from his face, replaced instantly by shock. He unfolded the thin pages roughly, his eyes locked on the cold words and that familiar yet distant signature at the bottom. Due to a weak emotional foundation and incompatible values, we hereby dissolve the engagement and wish each other happiness. Each word stabbed into his eyes like needles. Ridiculous. He slammed the papers down on his desk with a loud bang, startling the aide beside him. His chest rose and fell violently, his mind thrown into chaos. It was all because of that photo. The moment Ethan saw it, he had people suppress the trending topic online. He was already planning to come back and explain that it was just an accident, that Summer had almost tripped and he was only helping her up. How could it have come to this? How could I have sent him a termination of engagement agreement so suddenly? This wasn't the Lena he knew. The Lena he knew was gentle and understanding, sometimes even too compliant. Even when she was angry, at most she'd get teary-eyed and stay quiet. Never would she do something so decisive, so absolute, leaving him no room to breathe. "Captain," his aide asked carefully, "is everything all right?" Ethan took a deep breath, forcing himself to suppress the turmoil in his chest. His cold, controlled expression returned, but his clenched fists betrayed the unrest beneath the surface. "I'm fine, you can go." The aide practically bolted out the door. The office fell silent. Ethan sat alone, staring at the termination agreement again. His eyes darkened as they lingered on my name, Lena Carter. He pulled out his phone, found my number, and called. "We're sorry, the number you have dialed is currently unavailable." He tried again. The same cold, automated message. He'd been blocked. Ethan's expression turned grim. He immediately called my family's landline. My mother answered, her tone filled with worry and hesitation. "Ethan, Lena." She said she's made up her mind. I don't know what's gotten into her. She's locked herself in her room since yesterday, won't see anyone, won't answer her phone. We tried talking to her, but it's no use. Ethan forced his voice to stay calm. "Ma'am, I know this is about that photo. It's all a misunderstanding. I'll be on leave soon, and I'll come back to explain everything in person. Ah, young people, my mother sighed softly. You can talk to her yourself then. She hung up. Even the chance to explain was taken from him. Frustrated, Ethan ran a hand through his hair. That faint, unsettling sense of losing control crept into his chest. After thinking for a moment, he dialed another number. Summer, did you see the trending post? I saw it, came her soft, delicate voice. I know it's not your fault. Lena might be upset, he continued, his tone restrained. If she reaches out to you, please talk to her for me. Tell her it really was just a misunderstanding. All right, Ethan, Summer said gently, her tone tinged with guilt. It's all my fault. If I hadn't insisted on going to Sonia, none of this would have happened. I'll explain everything to Lena. Don't worry. After hanging up, the irritation in Ethan's chest only grew stronger. He stared at the glaring agreement on his desk, his eyes dark and unreadable. Lena Carter, he muttered under his breath. What the hell are you trying to do? Meanwhile, I was lounging comfortably on the balcony in a rocking chair, sunlight warming my skin as I read my book. My phone was on silent, but the screen kept lighting up, calls from Ethan, from Summer. I ignored every single one. The doorbell rang. It was my mother, carrying a plate of freshly cut fruit. Her face was filled with worry. Lena, honey, tell me the truth. What's going on? Ethan called the house. He said it's all a misunderstanding and that he'll explain everything when he comes back. You two ending an engagement isn't a small thing. I set down my book and took her hand, my tone calm but firm. Mom, it's not a misunderstanding. That photo was only the final trigger. There's no real love between Ethan and me. If I marry him, I'll never be happy. But you two have always gotten along, haven't you? She said anxiously. Ethan may not talk much, but he's a decent man. Good family, good background. Lam, I interrupted softly, but my voice was steady. A good family background and a decent personality don't mean he's the right man for me. I don't want to spend the rest of my life living under another woman's shadow. I've already made up my mind about this. Seeing the determination in my eyes, my mother finally sighed and said nothing more. She knew me too well. Once I set my mind on something, not even 9 oxen could pull me back. Not long after she left, my phone screen lit up again. This time, it was Summer Hayes. Seeing her name, the corner of my mouth lifted in a cold, humorless smile. Finally, she can't sit still anymore. I picked up the phone and pressed accept, but said nothing. On the other end, Summer's voice came immediately, choked with tears and anxious. Lena, thank God you answered. Please, don't be mad at Ethan. It's all my fault, not his. I'm the one who slipped that day. He just reached out to steady me. We never thought someone would take a photo, or that it would blow up like this. Please, I'm begging you, don't break off the engagement with him. You two are perfect together. This is all because of me. Her voice trembled with emotion, sincere and pitiful, as if she were the one wronged. If this had been my previous life, I might have been moved by her tearful apology, maybe even comforted her instead. But now, I only felt disgust. I sat quietly listening to her little performance. When her crying finally started to taper off, I spoke slowly, my tone calm and cold. Are you done? Summer's sobs stopped abruptly. She clearly hadn't expected that reaction. Summer, I said evenly, my voice detached yet cutting through her pretense like glass. There's no one else here, so you can stop acting. I know exactly what's been going on between you and Ethan. I'm breaking off this engagement. Completely. If you like picking up what I've thrown away, go right ahead. But don't put on this fake innocence in front of me. The other end of the line fell silent. For a few seconds, there was nothing but the sound of her breathing. Then her voice rose suddenly, shrill and trembling with disbelief and panic. Lena, how could you say that about me? Ethan and I are innocent. I've always treated you like a sister. I don't want you to. Shut up. My voice was sharp and icy. Don't call me your sister. It makes me sick. Then I added, my tone still calm but filled with quiet fury, and tell your Ethan Carter to sign those papers quickly. Otherwise, I don't mind making things public and letting everyone see just how innocent you two really are. Without waiting for a response, I hung up and blocked her number 2. As expected, Summer couldn't sit still for long. Less than 2 hours after I ended the call and blocked her, my doorbell rang again. This time, non-stop. Through the peephole, I saw her standing outside my apartment. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her expression pitiful, and she was holding a fruit basket like some remorseful angel. Persistent as a ghost. I had no intention of answering, but she kept pressing the doorbell over and over, as if determined to stay until the end of time. I could already see my neighbors poking their heads out to see what was going on. I took a deep breath, walked to the door, and unlocked it, but only opened it a narrow crack, just wide enough for us to talk. "Lena!" she exclaimed as soon as she saw me. Tears streamed down her face like broken pearls. "I know you're angry at me. I came to apologize in person. Please don't be mad at Ethan because of me. You can't call off the engagement. It's not right." Her voice was perfectly pitched. Not too loud, not too soft, just enough for anyone in the hallway to overhear. I leaned lazily against the doorframe, crossing my arms over my chest. I watched her performance with a blank expression. When she finished speaking, I said flatly, "Are you done? Then you can leave." Seeing how indifferent I was, Summer bit her lip hard, as if she'd made some kind of desperate decision. Suddenly, with a loud thud, she dropped straight to her knees on the concrete outside my door. "Lena," she cried, tears streaming down her face, "I'm begging you. Please forgive me. Please forgive Ethan too." Her voice trembled with sobs, pitiful and meek. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have insisted that Ethan go to Sonia with me. I shouldn't have tripped and made him catch me. Every bit of this mess is my fault. If you want to hit me or yell at me, do it, but please, don't break up with him because of me." Her wailing was loud enough to echo through the hallway. The noise drew attention. My neighbor from across the hall opened her door, staring in shock at the scene. That was exactly what Summer wanted. She knelt there, shoulders trembling delicately like a fragile white flower battered by the rain, an image perfectly designed to evoke sympathy from anyone watching. In my previous life, this same act of self-sacrifice cloaked in moral guilt had pushed me and Ethan further apart each time. And Ethan, fool that he was, would always rush to comfort her, convinced she'd been wronged, and then turn around to blame me for not being understanding enough. But this life was different. I didn't panic and rush to help her up. I didn't feel even a flicker of pity. I just looked down at her from above, my gaze cold, carrying a trace of open mockery. "Summer," I said evenly, almost curious, "what scene are you trying to play this time? Is this your pity play? Or maybe moral blackmail?" Her sobs faltered for a second. Clearly, she hadn't expected that response. The neighbor across the hall finally spoke up, her voice hesitant. "Lena, dear, she's already kneeling. Can't you two just talk things through calmly?" I turned to the woman, polite but distant. "Ma'am, this is between her and me. You don't know the full story. Some people like to use kneeling to manipulate others. Don't let her fool you." The neighbor opened her mouth but said nothing more, though her eyes still reflected sympathy. For Summer, of course. Sensing that, Summer started crying even harder. Her sobs grew louder, her forehead lowering to the ground as she began to kowtow. "Lena, I know you hate me. Do whatever you want to me. I don't care. I just beg you, don't give up on Ethan. He truly loves you. You've been together for so many years. Don't throw it all away because of me." I almost laughed. The sound that escaped me was cold and sharp. "Ethan loves me?" I asked, my tone dripping with irony. "If he loved me, would he go on vacation with you to Sonia while he was still engaged to me? If he loved me, would you be kneeling here at my door, putting on a show for the neighbors?" I took a step forward, my gaze steady and cutting. "Summer, you and Ethan are both the same, fake and dramatic. Truly a perfect match." Then I paused, noticing more people beginning to gather nearby, drawn by the commotion. My lips curved into a faint smile, and I raised my voice just enough for everyone to hear clearly. "For those who might not know," I began calmly, "this young woman kneeling here is Summer Hayes, the one who was trending online a few days ago for holding hands with Captain Ethan Carter of the Special Ops Unit outside a resort in Sonia. And I said, letting my words ring clearly through the hall, am Ethan Carter's fiancée. Since I can't accept my fiancé being so intimate with another woman, I decided to call off the engagement. And now, Miss Hayes has come to my home to kneel and beg me not to." I looked around at the small crowd, meeting each set of eyes. "So tell me, everyone, who's really bullying whom here?" My words were clear, calm, and precise. and in an instant, the entire situation flipped. The looks from the onlookers shifted instantly, from sympathy to disdain and scornful curiosity. So that's who it is. The mistress actually came to the fiancé's home to plead? My God, how shameless can you get? The real fiancé hasn't even caused a scene, and she's already on her knees. She's trying to guilt-trip her into forgiving him. Classic manipulation. Disgusting. The whispers pierced the air like needles, stabbing straight into Summer's pride. Her face turned as pale as paper, her body trembling on the cold concrete. The pitiful, fragile act she had been putting on collapsed instantly, panic flickering in her tearful eyes. "No, that's not true," she stammered weakly, her voice cracking. "You're all misunderstanding." I stared at her coldly. "Enough, Summer. Stop pretending. Your tears and your kneeling don't work on me anymore. I've already made up my mind. Whether you and Ethan are madly in love or just playing games, it has nothing to do with me." I took a slow step forward, my tone steady but cutting. "But remember this, don't show up in front of me again. Otherwise..." I leaned closer, just enough that only she could hear, and whispered clearly, word by word, "I won't mind making public all the other evidence of your so-called brother-sister affection. Like those photos of you and Ethan sharing a sweet insania." Summer's head jerked up violently. Her pupils shrank and all color drained from her face. She stared at me as if she'd just seen a ghost, her lips trembling soundlessly. I knew I had hit her where it hurt most. Straightening up, I no longer looked at her miserable figure. I turned to the gathered neighbors with a polite smile. "Sorry to disturb everyone. Just a small personal matter, already taken care of." Then I stepped back and shut the door firmly behind me with a loud bang. Summer's dramatic kneeling outside my door didn't win her any sympathy. Instead, it became the juiciest gossip in the neighborhood for days. I later heard she was picked up, disheveled and humiliated by the Carter family themselves. Good. I finally had peace and quiet. With that mess behind me, I could focus on rebuilding my own life. I had majored in design in college, but for the sake of being a suitable match for Ethan, I had taken a dull, easy job after graduation, wasting my talent and time. Now I decided to change that. I sent my resume to several design studios I admired. Just as I was preparing to head out for one of the interviews, Ethan showed up, unannounced. He was waiting downstairs, blocking my way. Not calling, not sending a message, not ordering someone else to speak for him. He came himself. He was in casual clothes, standing tall as ever, but there was exhaustion etched between his brows, and tension lined every feature of his face. He stood silently at the entrance of my building, like a statue, his whole presence radiating a suffocating aura that warned others to stay away. People passing by couldn't help but glance his way, whispering among themselves. I came downstairs, bag in hand, and when I saw him, I didn't slow down for even a second. I walked right past him, heading straight for the exit of the complex, as if he were nothing but air. "Lena," he finally spoke, his voice hoarse and rough, heavy with the fatigue of a sleepless night. I acted as if I hadn't heard him and kept walking. Within moments, he caught up and grabbed my wrist, his grip iron-tight, his tone low and commanding. "We need to talk." The pressure on my wrist sent a wave of disgust rising from deep within me. In my previous life, he had used this same kind of false dominance, acting forceful, yet never once caring about my feelings. Again and again, he'd pushed me further away under the guise of control. I stopped walking, but didn't turn around. My voice was cold and sharp. "Let go." "Lena, stop this nonsense," he said, his tone firm, laced with suppressed anger. There was a faint trace of agitation and pleading in his voice, something I had never seen from him in my past life. "What's going on with this termination agreement? And why was Summer kneeling at your doorstep? Can't we just sit down and talk things through?" I suddenly yanked my hand free with such force that he stumbled half a step back, completely caught off guard. I turned around and finally looked him in the eye. There was not a hint of the affection I once felt, only cold indifference and distance as sharp as ice. "Captain Carter," I said evenly, my voice calm but cutting like a blade. "I thought I'd made myself very clear. The engagement is over. Whatever happens between us from now on is none of your business. As for why Summer was kneeling at my door, you should ask her, not interrogate me." My words struck him like shards of glass. Ethan's brows furrowed tightly as if he were searching my face for some trace of the gentle, obedient woman he used to know. But all he found was a wall of ice that stretched farther than he could reach. "Is this because of those photos from Sanya?" he asked, taking a deep breath and forcing his tone to soften. "That really was a misunderstanding. Summer, Summer," I cut him off sharply, my voice rising with open mockery. "You sound so affectionate when you say her name. What's next? You're going to tell me she's like your sister? That what you two have is just brotherly and sisterly affection?" His face darkened, his jaw tightening. "You and I both know exactly what kind of relationship that is," I said, stepping closer, my gaze cold and disdainful. "Do I need to show you the hotel record of you two sharing a suite in Sanya?" Ethan's pupils contracted violently. The color drained from his face, leaving him ashen. Panic flickered in his eyes. How could you possibly know that?" "How I know doesn't matter," I interrupted icily. "What matters is, I don't care anymore." I looked at his pale, shaken face and felt nothing. No pain, no anger, only a deep, chilling calm. "Whether you two are truly in love or just having an affair, it's all the same to me. I, Lena Carter, have no interest in a man whose heart belongs to someone else and whose body might not even be clean." "Lena Carter," his voice rose sharply, veins standing out on his temples, fury and humiliation blazing in his eyes. "What the hell are you talking about? Summer and I are innocent." "Innocent?" I let out a short, derisive laugh, the sound like ice cracking. His fists clenched instantly. "Holding hands is innocent? Sharing a hotel room is innocent? Ethan, your definition of innocence is awfully generous. What's next? You'll tell me it only stops being innocent if I catch you two in bed." He trembled with anger, his whole body shaking. He had never seen me like this, sharp-tongued, unflinching, merciless. The docile, patient woman who once waited for him endlessly was gone. I met his burning gaze without fear. "Captain Carter," I said clearly and deliberately, "get this through your head. It's me who doesn't want you anymore." Word by word, I made sure every syllable landed like a final verdict. "Ethan Carter," I said, "consider yourself dumped." When I finished, I didn't spare him another glance. His face was a storm of disbelief, rage, and something that looked almost like heartbreak, but none of it mattered to me anymore. I turned away and walked straight out of the complex without a backward look. After shaking off Ethan, I went on to pass the interview at a new design studio. It wasn't a large firm, but the atmosphere was creative and warm, and the director had a clear, inspiring vision. With the aesthetic sense I had developed in my previous life and the calm maturity far beyond others my age, I soon earned the opportunity to join an important design project. I threw myself completely into my work, learning new software, staying up late to sketch, brainstorming with the team. Life became busy and fulfilling, leaving me almost no time to think about Ethan and Summer or the chaos they had brought. But peace never lasts when someone refuses to let go. Ethan Carter clearly couldn't accept the fact that I had broken up with him. He started trying every possible way to contact me, or rather, to regain control. He changed his number and called me again. The moment I heard his voice, I hung up and blocked him. Then he had one of his buddies from the unit call saying, "The captain knows he was wrong. Please give him another chance." I responded politely but distantly, "I'm busy. Please don't bother me with personal matters." He didn't stop there. He even found the address of the design studio where I worked and waited outside after hours. That evening, as I stepped out of the building, I saw him leaning against a military jeep, still wearing that cold, stoic expression, though now with a trace of something new in his eyes. Obsession. "Lena, we need to talk," he said, blocking my way, his tone firm and commanding, as if refusal wasn't an option. I stopped, holding a roll of design blueprints in my arms, and looked at him expressionlessly. "Captain Carter, I'm busy. I don't have time to play your little game of chase. Also, this is a workplace area. Please mind the scene you're making." His lips tightened, curling slightly into what might have been a bitter smile. "You care about appearances now? When you sent that termination agreement to my unit and made Summer kneel in public, you didn't seem worried about appearances then." "That was your doing, not mine," I replied coldly. "If you two had behaved appropriately, I wouldn't have had the chance to ruin your image." He fell silent, my words cutting through whatever argument he had planned. After a moment, he exhaled and spoke again, his tone softer. Lena, I know I was wrong before, he said quietly. I admit, maybe I crossed some boundaries with Summer. I didn't mean to make you misunderstand, but there's really nothing between us. I'll keep my distance from her from now on. Can't we start over? The same tired lines. I almost wanted to applaud. Nothing between you two? Then, what about all those love-soaked words in your journal? The promise to be buried next to her after death? What was that supposed to be? A misunderstanding too? I looked at him, not with anger, but with something closer to pity and contempt. Ethan, do you really think that if you just lower your head a little and say a few soft words, I'll come running back? That I'll go back to being that obedient woman who waited for you whenever you called? His brows knitted. That's not what I meant. Then what do you mean? I cut him off, my voice rising. Do you think I called off our engagement out of anger? That I'm just waiting for you to coax me back? I took a step closer, meeting his eyes directly. You're wrong. Completely wrong. Word by word, clearly and firmly, I said, I broke off our engagement because I finally saw you for who you are, and I finally saw myself clearly too. I don't love you anymore, Ethan Carter. Not one bit. To me, you're no different from a stranger. So please, stop humiliating yourself by showing up here. A stranger? He repeated, his expression hardening as the words sank in. The look in his eyes turned dark, like a storm gathering behind them. Lena, he said in a low voice, trembling with anger, after all these years, after everything between us, you think you can just say it's over? Just say you don't love me anymore? I don't believe you. He suddenly grabbed my shoulders, his grip so strong that pain shot through my bones. Tell me, he demanded, his voice rough and unsteady. Is it because of Summer? Is that why you're letting me go? Ethan demanded. Before I could answer, a clear male voice cut through the tense air. Is something wrong here? I turned and saw Evan Cooper, my mentor and the lead designer at the studio, striding quickly out of the building. His brows were slightly furrowed as his eyes landed on Ethan's hand gripping my shoulder, his expression darkening immediately. Ethan's movement froze. He turned to look at Evan, his eyes narrowing sharply, filled with hostility and suspicion, like a predator assessing a rival. And who the hell are you? Ethan asked coldly. Evan ignored the question completely. He walked straight up to me, his voice calm but firm, carrying the quiet authority of someone used to being obeyed. Sir, please take your hand off my colleague. Otherwise, I'll have to call the police. Ethan glanced at Evan standing protectively beside me, then at me, seeing clearly that I wasn't asking for help, wasn't even looking at him for rescue. My face was expressionless, detached. His jaw tightened, his hand still clamped painfully on my shoulder, the tendons on the back of his hands standing out white from tension. But after a long, charged silence, he slowly released me. He gave me one last deep look, his eyes burning with anger, resentment, and something darker, something territorial and feral. Lena Carter, he said through clenched teeth, his voice low and dangerous, this isn't over. With that, he turned abruptly and strode toward his jeep. The engine roared to life with a harsh growl before he sped off, tires screeching as he disappeared down the road. You okay? Evan asked, turning to me with concern. I rubbed my sore shoulder and shook my head. I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Ex-boyfriend? He asked, one eyebrow raised knowingly. I gave a small, tired smile. Something like that. We broke up, but he doesn't seem to understand the meaning of move on. Evan nodded, choosing not to pry further. Next time you're working late, tell me first. I'll drive you home. People like him, you're better off staying away from. A faint warmth bloomed in my chest at his calm protectiveness. Thanks, Mr. Cooper. As I looked toward the direction Ethan's car had vanished, my expression hardened again. Not over? Ethan Carter, do you really think this is still the last life, where you could control everything and everyone around you? It's time you and your precious Summer learned what letting go truly means. I took out my phone and sent a message to a business journalist I'd contacted before, someone with a sharp nose for scandal. Regarding the government bidding project that the Carter Group recently participated in, I have some internal information about their competitor, Horizon Group. You might find it interesting. The anonymous message spread like a stone dropped into still water, and the ripples it caused were far greater than I'd expected. Within days, rumors began circulating in the business world about Horizon Group's alleged involvement in unfair competition. No names were mentioned, but the hints were clear enough to point toward some unusual interactions with internal officials. Naturally, the Carter Group, being their main competitor, was dragged into the scandal as well. Project progress stalled, and the board was openly displeased. The pressure on Ethan must have been immense. His military unit and the Carter family's business interests were deeply intertwined. Once the family's reputation suffered, he couldn't avoid the fallout. I heard he'd been visiting his base less frequently lately, spending most of his time dealing with family matters. That evening, after work, Evan and I stayed late to revise a design proposal for an urgent client. By the time we wrapped up, it was past 10. "Come on, I'll drive you home," Evan said casually, grabbing his keys. I was exhausted and didn't bother to refuse. "All right," I said, my tone light. I nodded slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Cooper." When his car pulled up in front of my apartment complex, I froze. A familiar figure was standing right in the middle of the entrance, Ethan Carter. He had clearly been waiting a long time. He leaned against his car, several cigarette butts scattered by his feet. The dim glow of the streetlights outlined his sharp, hardened profile, his whole body radiating a tense, controlled anger. Evan slowed the car, frowning slightly. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and stepped out. "So it comes to this after all." "Lena," Ethan called, straightening up and walking toward me, one deliberate step after another. His eyes swept over me first, then shifted sharply toward Evan in the driver's seat, before returning to fix on my face. His voice was low and dangerous. "It's late. He drove you home?" "That's none of your business, Captain Carter," I said evenly. "None of my business?" He repeated with a mocking laugh. His eyes burned with fury, and something like betrayal. "I've been breaking my back trying to handle the Carter family's mess because of you, and here you are, out in the middle of the night with another man." His words made me laugh bitterly. "Ethan, watch your language. Mr. Cooper is my supervisor. We worked late on a project, that's all. Not everyone spends their nights playing brother and sister the way you and Summer do." "Don't mention her," Ethan roared suddenly, his composure snapping. It was as if I had pressed right on his wound. "I'm talking about you. Did you break off the engagement because of him? Did you change so much because of that man?" He pointed angrily toward Evan, his glare murderous. "The one who's unreasonable here is you, Ethan." I exploded, my voice trembling with the force of 2 lifetimes worth of hurt and anger finally breaking free. "We've already broken up. Who I'm with, what I do, it has nothing to do with you." I stepped forward, shouting through the tears burning my throat. "What right do you have to question me? The right of a man who still pines for another woman while keeping me on a leash? The right of someone who took everything I gave and still called me cold and ungrateful? Tell me, Ethan, what right do you have?" My voice echoed through the still night, trembling but fierce, filled not just with pain, but with finality. Ethan froze. He stared at my red-rimmed eyes, at the anger radiating off me like sharp thorns. For the first time, I saw shock flicker across his face, as if he was finally realizing the woman before him was no longer the one who once waited quietly for him year after year. He opened his mouth to speak, but whatever justification he had died in his throat. In the face of my raw accusations, all his excuses suddenly sounded hollow and pathetic. At that moment, Evan got out of the car. He walked up beside me, not even sparing Ethan a glance, and gently patted my shoulder. Then he handed me a tissue and said softly, "Are you okay?" That simple gesture was the spark that shattered Ethan's fragile control. His eyes turned bloodshot, and before I could react, he lunged forward and swung his fist straight at Evan. "Get your damn hands off her," he roared. "Mr. Cooper!" I screamed. Evan reacted fast, sidestepping the punch, his expression darkening. "Captain Carter," he said coldly, "calm down. Violence won't solve anything." "Fuck your calm down," Ethan snapped, completely losing control. He threw another punch, this one harder, faster, and fueled by the strength of a trained soldier. Just as their fists were about to collide, the security guards came rushing out, and several apartment lights flicked on as residents peeked out their windows. "Stop fighting, or I'm calling the police," one of the guards shouted. Ethan stood there, chest heaving, fists clenched, his eyes locked on Evan with murderous fury. He looked at me again, his eyes bloodshot, wild, and filled with something close to despair. "Lena Carter," he hissed through clenched teeth. "You're good. Really good." Then, without another word, he spun around, yanked open his car door, and slammed it shut. The engine roared violently, and the Jeep shot off like an arrow, disappearing into the dark night. The moment he was gone, all the tension drained from my body. I leaned weakly against Evan's car, and finally, the tears I had been holding back spilled down my cheeks. But they weren't tears of sorrow, only exhaustion and a deep, weary sense of release. Evan stood beside me silently, offering no questions, no judgment, just quiet presence. I knew then that whatever fragile tie still existed between me and Ethan Carter had completely burned out in that moment. There was nothing left. After that night's outburst, Ethan seemed to calm down for a while, but knowing both him and Summer, I doubted they'd stay quiet for long. And I was right. A week later, a video began to circulate in small private groups online. It was carefully edited footage showing me and Evan working late, then him driving me home. The angles were deliberately chosen, zooming in on those brief moments when we leaned close to discuss design drafts, paired with suggestive captions implying that I was having an affair with my boss and that my breakup with Ethan was due to infidelity. Soon after, vile rumors appeared on anonymous forums, claiming I had used my body to climb the corporate ladder, insinuating I was a typical workplace seductress. It was crude, but disgusting enough to do real harm. And it didn't take a genius to figure out whose handiwork it was. Summer Hayes had gotten desperate, and this was her last, pathetic attempt to destroy me. The whispers in the studio were unavoidable. Though most people didn't believe the gossip outright, curiosity always lingers. Evan, under pressure from the team, addressed it head-on in the next meeting. "Lena joined our studio based on merit," he said firmly before everyone. "Her talent and professionalism are evident to anyone who's worked with her. I won't tolerate baseless speculation or defamation. Anyone who spreads rumors will be dealt with according to company policy." His public support moved me deeply, but I also knew that unless the root of the problem was cut out, the rumors would never truly stop. So I went back to the same investigative journalist I'd contacted before. I sent him proof. Bank transfers showing Summer had paid for online bots to spread the rumors, and IP logs linking the smear posts directly to her. I also attached screenshots, Summer flaunting luxury gifts on social media, flirtatious messages exchanged with several wealthy, married businessmen, and photos of her attending private parties she had once claimed were brand collaborations. "These might be a little more valuable than her baseless gossip about me," I wrote in my message. The reporter replied quickly with a simple. The very next day, an exposé went live under the headline, "The True Face of the Innocent Sweetheart, Inside Summer Hayes' Life of Manipulation and Lies." The article was meticulous, with clear logic and hard evidence, complete with screenshots, receipts, and photos. It detailed how Summer had used her pure and pitiful image to court multiple men for financial gain, and how she had hired online trolls to slander others when things didn't go her way. The story exploded like a bomb. Within hours, public opinion flipped completely. The old rumors about me crumbled instantly, replaced by a tidal wave of outrage against Summer. Oh my God, so she's the real time management queen, juggling men like a pro. She kept preaching purity while collecting gifts from rich guys? Disgusting. So she failed to steal someone's fiancé and then tried to smear the real fiancé? Unreal. Captain Carter must have been completely fooled by her. What a nightmare of a woman. Summer's phone reportedly rang non-stop, her social media flooded with angry comments. Her so-called best friends, the same ones who used to fawn over her, all publicly distanced themselves. She tried to call Ethan. But according to what I heard later, the moment he saw the article, he smashed his phone in rage and refused to take any of her calls ever again. The Carter family's reputation was utterly ruined. Ethan's mother was so furious she publicly declared that someone like Summer Hayes would never be allowed to set foot in their home again. After the scandal, Ethan disappeared completely, as if he had vanished from the face of the earth. It wasn't until a month later that I heard from him again. Somehow, he had pulled strings and gone through several contacts to get my new number. When he finally called, his voice was hoarse, so hoarse it was almost unrecognizable, thick with exhaustion. "Lena," he rasped, "can we meet one last time? There are some things I want to tell you in person." He paused before adding softly, "I promise it'll be the last time." I was silent for a long moment before agreeing. Some things I knew needed to be settled face to face. We arranged to meet at a quiet tea room in a private booth. When I saw Ethan again, I barely recognized him. He had lost a lot of weight. His face was hollow, his eyes sunken, and his once clean-cut jawline was now shadowed with stubble. The cool, disciplined soldier's aura he used to carry was gone, replaced by the weary, defeated air of a man crushed by his own choices. When his gaze found mine, there was a flicker of emotion. Pain, regret, but it soon dulled into something empty and gray. "You came," he said finally, his voice dry and rough. I sat down across from him, not touching the cup of tea in front of me. "Say what you need to say." He looked at me for a long time, as if trying to carve my face into memory. Then he gave a small, self-deprecating smile. "I lost Lena, completely." I didn't respond. "I know everything about Summer now," he continued, lowering his head and staring at the calloused palms of his hands. "I was stupid, blind. She fooled me for years, and I hurt you over and over because of her." His voice broke slightly. "It wasn't until I lost you, until I saw all the evidence, that I finally understood how wrong I was. I didn't stop loving you, Lena. I just took you for granted. I got used to you being there. I got used to your kindness, your patience, so much that I forgot to cherish you, forgot to see people for who they really were." When he lifted his head again, his eyes were rimmed with red, filled with pain and remorse. "Lena, I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. If I just realized sooner, if I had." "There are no ifs, Ethan," I interrupted quietly. My tone was calm, steady, without even a ripple of emotion. "It's too late." His whole body trembled. The light in his eyes flickered and then slowly faded. "I didn't come here to listen to your repentance," I said, meeting his gaze squarely. My voice was clear and firm. "I just wanted to tell you, I don't hate you anymore, but I don't love you either. You're part of my past now." I stood up to leave. "Lena," he called after me suddenly, desperation breaking through his voice. I've applied for a transfer to the border. I'll be leaving next month. I don't know when, if, I'll be back." My steps faltered for just a moment, but I didn't turn around. "Take care," I said simply, and pushed open the door. Outside, the sunlight was warm and soft, spilling across my shoulders. I didn't ask him whether he still loved Summer or whether he had ever truly loved me. Those answers no longer mattered. 50 years of coldness in my past life had bought me clarity and freedom in this one. I drew in a deep breath of fresh air and stepped out into the bustling street beyond the tea room, toward my future.